Hello and thank you for joining in on today's training. Heart & Solutions is a proud provider of CE eligible trainings for our counseling community. This training may be eligible for continuing education credit hours through either the National Board for Certified Counselors, provider number 7376, or the Association of Play Therapy, provider number 21-645. To obtain CE hours for today's training, be sure to follow the steps in the description below to find and take your quiz.
All right, hello everyone. For those of you joining us today, I am recording this on November 11th, 2020. So some of you may be tuning in quite a bit later, but thank you very much for joining us today in this training. We're going to spend some time today talking about solution-focused play therapy. My name is Dr. Colleen Grote. I am the clinical director for Heart & Solutions. I have my PhD in counselor education and supervision. I am a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Iowa and a registered play therapy supervisor. So my email address is there on the bottom of that slide. Please feel free to reach out to me with any feedback that you may have on this training or anything that you may want to know more about solution-focused play therapy or ways that you've implemented solution-focused play therapy into your own practice. I always love hearing from those of you that are attending these trainings. I don't have any live participants today, so any feedback I get in the form of email or other communication is very much appreciated. I want to start us today with this quote from Shapiro from 1994. So several years ago, right? Even back then, knowing that the goal of short-term therapy is to enable children to utilize their internal resources for growth and development. Right? That's what we're focusing on today, right? Is how can we help these kiddos that we work with meet their own needs of growth and development and the reasons that they're coming in to see us in a short-term way, right? And we do that by trusting them and trusting that they have internal resources, right? They have the skills inside of them. How do we help them bring those out? Right? And the answer is solution-focused play therapy. I get asked a lot, how do I work with kids who are on a time restraint? How do I do play therapy when I'm not in charge of what that timeline looks like? And those barriers might be in place for any number of reasons, right? We might be on restrictions from insurance companies who only approve a certain number of sessions. We might be on restrictions because the child is in a setting such as a school or maybe a transitional living type setting where they're only going to be in contact with us for a short amount of time. And so things like solution-focused play therapy can really give us tools to integrate those play therapy basics, those key components of play therapy in a way that is systematic and helps them achieve their desired outcomes and a little bit more of a rigid time scale through some solution-focused needs. So our objectives today are to review solution-focused therapy concepts, right? So oftentimes we get really focused on our own world of play therapy, right? Am I doing non-directive? Am I doing directive? Am I being prescriptive in my approach to play therapy? What am I doing? Play. So I want to take a second and kind of rewind and go back to some of those solution-focused basics. And for some of us, solution-focused might not be in our wheelhouse. It might not be something that we do frequently. And so just getting a good groundwork for some of the basic tenets there. And then exploring the integration of play therapy and solution-focused therapy, right? So how do we take those solution-focused concepts and our play therapy concepts, and how do we mush those together? How do we utilize those to the best of both of those advantages? And throughout this, we're going to have interventions specific to solution-focused play therapy integrated into the training. So hopefully as we go through those key concepts and we go through that integration, those interventions will kind of fall into place nicely so that you can actually take some of this and utilize it with clients that are on your caseload. Solution-focused brief therapy. Solution-focused brief therapy was developed by Steve DeShazer and Kim Berg with collaboration from the Milwaukee Brief Family Therapy Center. So really started its development in the late 1970s and really came about as after observation of hundreds of hours of therapy, right? So lots of witnessing, lots of attending to therapy, and was really influenced by several key factors. So systemic family therapy, how we interact with people within families and within systems, how behavioral patterns change, Milton Erickson, and the belief, therefore, that clients have the capacity to change, as well as Ludwig's philosophical ideas about constructing realities, right? So what we learned from Ludwig is that people really take the realities and construct those realities through their use of language, and through the language that's around them. So that therapeutic conversation that we're having, the words that we're using in that therapeutic setting really have the ability to help those individuals create and construct new realities, right? And new truths about how they experience their life, how they view their life, the perception that they have. And so taking those kind of key constructs and knowing that our relationship and the language that we're using in our relationship really can have an influence over how our clients are viewing themselves and the truths about themselves. Some basic tenets of solution-focused brief therapy: it's evidence-based, it's short-term, goal-directed, it promotes hope, and it's oriented in the future. And it really is a process to help clients develop and achieve motivation, achieve their goals, and really sustain those behavioral changes, right? So the goal is to figure out what the goal is, what the objective of therapy is, to be really future focused, to help those clients find hope and to feel the ability to make that change, and then engage in changes and behavioral changes that are going to stick, that they can do outside of our therapy office. So how does that work, right? Those are all really great things. How do we make that happen from a solution-focused standpoint? And the way that we do that is that we generate and create a really detailed description of how the client's life will change when the problem is gone. Right? So what does this look like when this thing is gone, right? When this problem is no longer a problem. We then explore their previous life experiences, right? And what resources do they already have, right? And how can you utilize these or create new ones to implement change? So we do this by finding exceptions, and we're going to talk more about what finding exceptions looks like and what that means. But essentially, our clients have already demonstrated the ability to attend to the problem, right? To overcome that, even if it's on a really small scale. If I'm in therapy because I'm angry, and when I get angry, I lash out all of the time, and it's getting me in trouble at school because I keep getting sent to the principal's office, and my mom and dad are mad at me, and I get grounded. Somewhere in my life experience, right, there's been a day that maybe I was really angry, but I didn't get sent to the principal's office because I did something different, right? So we're going to help them find those exceptions. And this is a collaborative process, right? And again, we're going to talk a lot more about what that looks like and how to apply that collaboration. But these goals are not strictly the client's goals, right? We're going to help them develop these goals collaboratively so that they can be created in such a way that they can be met, right? And we'll talk about what that means, where sometimes we have to validate the client's goals, but also help them construct them so that they're behaviorally based. One of the reasons we're talking about solution-focused play therapy today is because we know from the research that solution-focused therapy works and it's effective. We talked about it. It's an evidence-based treatment. And when we look at studies focused on children, 78% of children 12 and younger responded to solution-focused therapy, not solution-focused play therapy, solution-focused therapy. So those basic tenets and concepts and applications of solution-focused work. When we look at that age group of 13 through 18-year-olds, that number increases to 89%. So as a general rule, solution-focused principles and tenets and methods are proving themselves effective with children. And so DeJong and Berg in 2002 identified these successes, right? And they really found success with kids as young as age 5. One of the things that they did caution about was using solution-focused therapy with children younger than kindergarten, because their cognitive requirements that are needed for this model, again, when we're talking about language and restructuring, those cognitive components just aren't there, right? It's not developmentally expected for children that young to be able to do that. And so one of the things that we can do when working with the younger children is make adjustments. So we want to match our language to their developmental levels. And the other way that we can do that is we can integrate play therapy, right? So Berg and Steiner in 2003 noted that children's nonverbal, playful, and creative nature really support a solution-focused model. Seligman in 2005 went on to talk about blending solution-focused methods with play therapy and art therapy, and really started to take these concepts of solution-focused work that we know work both with adults and children, and really take them into a new integrated approach to make solution-focused techniques more readily available to children and to match those developmental levels and to match where they're at. And the result of that is solution-focused play therapy, right? And the interventions that result from blending what we know about play therapy with these solution-focused methods. We're going to talk about kind of 3 main play therapy interventions and how to utilize those in conjunction with this solution-focused sequence in therapy. And so we're going to spend some time today talking about art techniques. And these are really important because they help the client make a picture of their lives, right? So they can make a picture of what their lives are currently. They can make a picture of what their lives would be if they were doing things differently, if the problem was gone, if things were better, right? Again, back to those basic tenets of solution-focused therapy. Art also has been proven to have a positive effect on function, cognition, and behavior. So those key things that we want to address when utilizing solution-focused techniques can really be enhanced and supported by art techniques. Puppets. Puppets are another phenomenal way to access that play center of the brain. They're just naturally attractive and fun, right? I was just at a training last week before, and somebody was sharing an intervention that they utilize, and there was a puppet involved, right? And before this presentation even started, it's like, oh, I want that. I want to go add that one to my collection. I need that one, right? It was fun. It was engaging. It made me want to be a part of that intervention. And so puppets are they just draw us in. They also allow us as the therapist to engage in play with the client. And so the client is able to invite us in to their play through puppets. We are also able to enter that play with puppets in a way that is safe, and able to kind of access their world that way. It helps children verbalize or act out what they can't verbalize. It gives them a new way to express that. And so when we think about traditional solution-focused techniques and the cognitive and language skills that are needed for those, and we strip those down to things like puppet play, we no longer need those adult levels of cognition, and it allows children to express all of those things without that language development. And puppets are great for goal setting and feedback, right? They allow so many open metaphors and expressions that can keep the client at a safe distance from what those goals are. We can set goals for puppets all day, right? And start to make those transitions to real life applications. So we're going to talk a lot about puppets today. We're also going to talk about sand tray, right? And sand tray is another great medium that helps children become engaged in the process. And this is a bit of a side note, but for those of you watching currently, we are still in the midst of a global pandemic. And so I've gotten a lot of questions about how do I do sand tray right now? And there are some wonderful resources about that and things like cleaning sand and sanitizing sand. I've also really encouraged the therapists that I work with to be creative right now. So moving even to things like rice trays and having individual smaller trays for clients if you're doing in person. For clients that are at home and doing telehealth, even setting up a sensory bin or defining a blanket space or a towel space. While it's not sand tray, it's not exactly the same. There's lots of ways that we can still creatively approach these interventions. So I don't want to write off any of these modalities due to some of the restrictions or barriers that we're seeing right now due to coronavirus and being primarily telehealth for most of us. But sand tray really allows us to engage in that process. And again, it's a nonverbal way that these children can express emotions, their struggles, their perceptions of what's going on. So again, we're stripping down those cognitive needs and that language development piece so that all of these children and adults can engage in play therapy techniques as they move through that solution-focused process. A clear goal is the best predictor of effective outcomes. I think oftentimes we get lost in the goal setting process of traditional play therapy, right? There are some great trainings on goal setting for play therapy, and I'm so glad that those exist because they're so needed. And so one of the things that I really like about play therapy from a solution-focused lens is it takes us into that goal setting, right? It's impossible to do solution-focused play therapy without really clear goal setting. And goal development, when we think about traditional solution-focused therapy, tells us that goals need to be clear, right? They need to be concrete. What is the point? They should be positive in nature, right? And behavioral in their description, right? I don't want to be mad so much. Okay, so you want to be happier, right? Okay, so what are you going to be doing when you are feeling happier more often? Okay, you're going to be going to the park, right? I wonder how many days you'd be going to the park, right, per week. We want to set these really clear visual goals that can be visualized, right, that can be future oriented and really promote that behavioral change. So what is your hope for coming to therapy? What needs to happen, right, so that you can look back and it's not a waste of time. I love this question and this goal setting directive, especially working with adolescents. And you can ask it in a variety of ways, right? But mom and dad want you to come here, right? School's making you come. What's going to make it worth it, right? If you've got to come see me for this hour every week, why, right? How can we make this a good use of your time? How can we make sure it's not a waste? When doing this with children, right, and really coming at this from a play therapy approach, really similar things. We want to get the child engaged in a goal that they want to happen, right? Again, going back to that first slide that talks about trusting their internal systems, we need to trust that this child knows what their goal is. And those goals can sometimes sound kind of silly on the surface. But we really can help take those goals of theirs and make them relevant and meaningful and specific, right? And redirecting goals that are not realistic is an important element of this. So sometimes when working with children, they may present goals that really are not realistic. So grandpa passed away, and the child's goal may be, I want grandpa to be alive again, right? That is unfortunately a very unrealistic goal. But our job as the therapist then becomes helping that child redirect that goal by exploring other components of that, right? You're sad when you think about grandpa passing away, and I wonder if you wish that you could be happier more often, right? I wonder what would be different if you didn't feel sad so often, right? I wonder what would happen if you had happier feelings more of the time, and helping them start to shift those unrealistic goals into those components of a positive, future-oriented behavioral goal that's relevant and meaningful and specific to why they're coming to see you. There's some prompts, right, of how to get through this goal development process. So our go-to therapy question, right? What brings you here today? Starting with, why are you here? Something got you in the door, right? My go-to question with adolescents: how are we going to know when you're done, right? When do you get to stop coming to see me? So what has to happen so you don't have to come and see me anymore? From day one, we want to be looking into the future, right? We want to be looking about how can we end this therapeutic relationship and get you to your goals. How will you know when things are better? What will you be doing? Sometimes I get a lot of like, I don't know. And so exploring things like, is there something you're going to be doing more of when things are better? Is there anything you're going to be doing less of when things are better? And if you were not sad, if you were not scared, if you were not whatever, what would you be doing instead? And really helping them, again, start to paint that picture of what that looks like. This is kind of an art therapy cheat sheet for goal setting for children. Although sometimes I think adults could really benefit from this as well, especially those I don't knows. I really like this sheet because it helps us start to make sense of, where am I at today? What do I need? And so it's a what do I want to talk about sheet. I also really like this sheet because while this one is filled in, it's really easily adaptable. And so for clients that maybe we know there's specific issues going on, or they've already kind of identified some big treatment plan goals, and we're in the midst of a session, but just, we can make these more or less specific based on the client's needs. And so the directions on here are either read all of the writing on the shapes, or read through them with an adult so they can read them independently or with us. And they then have a chance to color in the shapes of the ones they want to talk about. And I think that there's so many options with this, right? So they can color in what they want to talk about that day. In goal development at the onset of therapy, they can color in all of the things that they may want or need to talk about at some point during therapy. I have had kiddos color code, so things that they're ready to talk about today, things that they want to talk about later, a different color for things that they think they probably should talk about, but they're not ready yet. And kind of let them have some free rein creativity over that. And it allows us to really individualize the client's needs based on their presenting issues, based on who they are as an individual. And so this one has things like things that are going well, worries and fears, my feelings, my dreams, my families, things at school, or my anger, or something at home. And so it's pretty non-specific. And again, it really lends itself to being able to leave it as is, to make it more or less specific, and really have some fun with this and make it as useful as it can be for your individual clients. When we look at things like Sandtray, right? Some really nice prompts for Sandtray for goal setting. Really, basic introductory prompt of just create your world, right? Show me your world. Create a tray about your life. Prompts of, create a tray that describes how you feel right now. Create a scene about what your life would look like without blank. So again, taking their reason for coming into therapy or their presenting issue, and okay, let's start to visualize, right? Let's start to set those future-oriented goals. Let's show me what it would look like without that thing. Helping them begin to identify how they want to make their world just a little bit better, right? Even just a little bit better. What does that do? Or what do you want to be doing differently in your world? Show me what you would be doing differently. Okay, so you've created this world. Let's adjust it a little bit. Show me what would be different if you met your goals or even began to meet your goals. Using puppets for goal setting, right? So elementary age children tend to really do well with puppet goal setting. Again, they're just naturally inviting, and it gives me a way to start to play out all of those things. And maybe I don't know how to say what my goal is, but my puppet can start to act out what's not going well. And then my puppet can start to show me what would be going well or what would be going different. And these two puppets will start to interact a little bit differently. The next component of a solution-focused model, so we've got our goal set, right? We've really worked hard to narrow that down and get really specific with that. Is at times that helps us to utilize the miracle question. And we probably all have a little bit of a basic understanding of the miracle question, right? And there's different versions floating around of that. But it helps the client visualize reaching a goal, right? You go to sleep tonight, you wake up tomorrow, and things are magically all better, right? What does that look like? And it helps them identify behaviors that lead to solutions, right? So what would you be doing different? How would you know that things were better? What's going on behaviorally that's different? And then we ask them in a traditional sense to talk about a time or identify a time where at least a little bit of that has already occurred. So we're going to move them from the miracle question to some exception seeking, and we'll get to that. When we're doing this with children, again, sort of like goal setting, where they sometimes wish for or set a goal that's not realistic, right? I am 6 years old and my goal is tomorrow I want to play football in the NFL, right? Like that's a realistic goal down the road potentially, but not tomorrow. And so we often get these unrealistic goals or expectations. Oftentimes we will get miracle questions that are equally as impossible, right? So same kind of thing. I wish grandpa never died, right? I'm going to validate that, and I'm going to affirm the heck out of that wish, right? But I'm also going to then bring them back to that behavioral goal, right? I wish grandpa didn't die either, right? But we know that we're working on feeling happier more often, right? Or being able to talk about these things or share these feelings or share these expressions. And also helping them explore how others might react. I get in trouble every day and I get sent to the principal's office and mom and dad are always so mad. I wonder if tomorrow, right, you woke up and you never got sent to the principal's office again, what would mom and dad do? Right? Oh, they wouldn't ground me. They wouldn't ground you. So I wonder what they do. Oh, they'd give me a big hug, right? And we'd get to go out to dinner, or we'd get to make my favorite dinner, or we'd get to do an activity together. I could play soccer because I wouldn't be grounded. Right? So we're not minimizing the problems. We're not pretending they don't exist. We're helping that client start to think about what life could look like if that problem is no longer the problem, right? Because they're meeting their goals. So especially with kids, it can be really helpful to focus on some of their interpersonal relationships too. And I wonder what your teacher would do, right? If you went to school tomorrow and you didn't get in trouble at all, I wonder what your teacher would do, and help them start to think about, she might give me a high five or a gold star, right? And help them start to think about how that relational aspect of things will be impacted as well. Looking at kind of our 3 play therapy integrations here. This first one is some artwork to assist in exploring the miracle question, right? And this is just from the website Teachers Pay Teachers. I've got some other resources from there in this as well. You can make your own version. This one was a free download, so feel free to utilize it or kind of adapt it to your needs. But it just kind of gives a space, right, for letting kids artistically express their miracle. So at the bottom, it prompts them, let's pretend that tonight, while you sleep, a miracle happens. The miracle is that all your problems are gone. Because you are sleeping, you don't know that the miracle has happened. When you wake up tomorrow morning, what would be different? Draw your new life. Right? So it gives them that prompt, it gives them that space to really start to, again, visualize, create, see themselves in this world where their problem doesn't exist anymore. The next option is to create a sand tray, right? Same sort of prompt, but instead of drawing, they can create it in the sand. And this is just an image from Google. This is not one of my clients. I'm not sure what the prompt was for this tray. It was freely shared just online. So, but to me, it looks like a pretty awesome potential miracle question type thing, right? There's elements of safety in there. There's some connectivity there, right? So letting children create with their miniatures what that miracle question outcome may be. And then lastly, exploring the miracle questions with puppets, right? And I love the use of wizards and magicians, right? Just to really get into that interaction. And I really like the one with the stars here. It's a paper bag puppet, right? It kind of took me a second to see that, but we don't have to have all of the puppets that we wish we had at our disposal, right? Great puppets are a wonderful resource in our playrooms. They are also oftentimes a little bit expensive and for good reason, right? High quality puppets last forever and ever and ever. But we don't have to let not having a certain puppet be a barrier, right? So if I know I'm going to be doing some solution-focused play therapy, I am creating, potentially with my client, right, a wizard or a magician puppet of some sort, and we can get really creative and create what we need to help support that process. So not having a wizard puppet or a magician doesn't need to be a barrier to using puppets for the miracle question. So I really just like showing those different options. So we've hinted at it a little bit already today, but going from our goal setting to our miracle question, we're going to help clients start to seek exceptions, right? So in traditional sort of talk-focused solution therapy work, we're helping them explore, okay, what happens instead of the problem, right? What's different about times when that thing is less of our problem? Maybe not when it's not a problem, but when it's a little bit less, right? So what did you experience, or when have you experienced a little bit of that miracle, right? And with children, right, we want to explore at least 2 or 3 exceptions. So helping them really kind of dig down into, okay, it wasn't just this one time that something was different. There's been at least 2 or 3 times that I only got grounded for a day, right, instead of a week. Or mom and dad were not very happy with me, but I didn't get grounded, right? Or I was so mad at my brother, but I didn't punch him, right? I only kicked the couch, right? Like helping, these don't have to be, I didn't do anything and I was perfect and it was the best day ever. These are exactly what we're calling them, right? They're exceptions to the big problem. And so using our creativity, using our ability to help reflect and reframe and really help them seek out those exceptions. And this can be labor intensive sometimes, right? If I am focused on this problem and I've been in that problem producing mindset, switching to this exception seeking, which is so critical to solution focused, can be a big shift. And so helping them really explore that. And with kiddos, we can do that in those three ways, right? So art, sand, and puppet exceptions. And allowing them to draw, create, or play when they have just a little bit of that miracle, right? So whatever medium and modality that they are most comfortable with, allowing them to utilize that, and maybe all three of them, right? Like maybe we're going to start to seek those exceptions and we're going to draw one time when we experienced a little bit of that miracle. And then we're going to create in the sand another time that we experienced a little bit of that. And then our puppets are going to show us what it was like one day when we had a little bit of that miracle happen. And so by utilizing all three of those interventions and prompting them to explore different exceptions, we're doing that digging, right? We're doing that exception seeking and uncovering at least 3 times that there was an exception met, without it feeling so forceful, right? Okay, we're going to think of 3 times that this didn't happen. No, we're going to play about all of these, right? And we already talked about the time that you didn't punch your brother, right? So I wonder if our puppets can show us another time that that you were a little bit less angry, right? And helping them start to explore those in those different modalities. The other element of solution-focused therapy that I really like, and I love its adaptation with children, is scaling. And so traditionally, when we're engaging in solution-focused interventions, we're using scaling questions and assessments to explore like where the client's at, right? What's your situation? How far are you from your goal? What is your current level of progress? Okay, what do we have to do to keep it here? What do we have to do to move it forward, right? Really, again, really concrete information about where are things at, where are they going. With children, it gives us the ability to rate their success, right? So I'm at a 1. I've had no success. Like this is not okay. To a 10, complete success, right? And scaling can be so easily adapted, right? So we kind of think of 1 through 10, but we can adapt that for kids. I like to use physical objects or even like coloring up the thermometer, because if I ask them to show me a little bit of beads, right, and they put 50 in a pile for their little bit and they put 500 in their pile for a lot, that allows me to scale according to their scale and their perceptions, right? Whereas 1 might be a little bit for me and 10 might be a lot for me. It doesn't matter, right? We can adapt those scales. If they want to do, 1 to 1,000, as long as I know the scale for that particular child, we can run with that. We can do that. So I really like the adaptations that can be made from scaling. And I have some kids that I don't want to say refuse, but refuse to numerically scale things, right? And so they kind of have their own keywords of not even like good and bad, right? Just trying to think of some of my kiddos who, some of them will say like, it's the same as usual, right? And I've worked with them long enough that we kind of have that scaling system. It's better than usual. So finding out, okay, what's their usual, right? What does that scaling mean? Because then it allows us to affirm their response and just be curious about what made it that, right? Oh, today's a 5? Tell me more about what a 5 day is, right? Tell me more. What made today a 5? I wonder what it would take to make tomorrow a 6, right? And so just again, adapting that scaling and really going through what that means. We, talking about adapting scaling. There's a great video here on play scaling and what that means. So we're going to take a few minutes to watch that video.
I'd like you to imagine a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being your family at its very best, and 1 is the opposite, the struggles or difficulties that brought you into therapy. I asked this question of a family who was at the time homeless. They said 1 was them being homeless, and 10 is having a home again, feeling safe, having trust back. And then I asked them to choose figurines to create the picture of that future, that preferred future of having a home, feeling safe. They made a beautiful picture, mom and daughter together, of animal groups, feeling safe next to each other, having plenty of food, and doing things together, and having a home. The 1 is the chaos and difficulty of being homeless, not knowing who's going to be there or what's going to be happening or where you're going to be sleeping. On the scale of 1 to 10, I asked the daughter and the mom, where are you now? Daughter said, about a 2. Mom said, maybe a 3. You are currently homeless, and yet you're at a 2 and a 3. How is it that that's happening? They said, well, they'd done a few things. They're talking just a little bit better. And they'd put a bag together, so they had a few special items with them, no matter where they slept. These were great things for them to remember. I asked, when you're just a little higher at a 2.5 and a 3.5, what will be happening then? The daughter said, I know I'll be at a 2.5 when we have a meal together. The mom loved that idea, and they started planning a meal together. This family was homeless, but they were not hopeless. Identifying the small things that were already going well and thinking about what slightly better will look like gave them a little more hope. This application of solution-focused play therapy has been very useful for me and the families I've worked with. I hope it's helpful for you.
Some really great information in that video. I hope that you guys found it helpful. I really like just the ability to be really playful with scaling techniques. The other way that we can adapt scaling for kids is with pictures, right? Pictures and numbers. And so being able to draw these out. I've had kids make their own emojis to go with different numbers. I've had kids draw their own faces, or again, there's really no limit to the creativity that we can find with scaling, and just being mindful of what does that mean to that individual client. Some artwork for scaling, right? So when we talk about like, where are you at today? Okay, now I know your scale, right? Now I know what your perception of 1 through 10 is. What's today? And letting them draw what a 6 is, letting them draw what a 3 is. With younger kids, I really like full-size body pictures. So seeing this kiddo here next to a full size, what do I look like when I'm at this number? For some older kids and adolescents, taking that scaling, but also reflecting back to their miracle question and their goal setting, right? Okay, today's a 1 or a 2, right? Draw that out for me. What does that look like? And that might be that picture that's a little more black and white, right? Okay, like what does an 8, 9, or 10 look like? And getting them to future focus on that scaling as well, right? So again, getting really inventive and creative here, with so many artwork opportunities for scaling. Wows and hows are another great intervention to utilize, and these were developed by Donald Nims. And Donald Nimst has done a ton of work with integrating play therapy and solution focused therapy. So a lot of the information presented here today is from his article. It's cited at the end, but he has a great article about integrating play therapy and solution focused therapy. So want to give a huge thanks and credit to him. And one of the interventions he talks about in that article is this wows and hows intervention. So it helps affirm the child's positive conclusions about their life, right, despite the tough things that have happened. And it also helps us facilitate asking them how they knew their behavior was the right thing to do. Right. So the child's telling us a story about their day, and maybe we've just done some scaling with them. Right. Well, today was a 7, right? Because I got angry at school, but I didn't lose my clip, right? A lot of our school systems use their red, yellow, green clips, right? I didn't have to move my clip down. As a therapist, right, engaging in wows and hows, I might say something like, oh, wow, right? You were able to do your 5-finger counting instead of yelling? I wonder, how did you know how to do that? Right? So it allows me to be really curious and also help them explore their own awareness, right? Of, I don't know, I didn't want to get in trouble. I remembered I could do my 5-finger breathing. Or the kid's like, yeah, today's an 8, right? I got all of my homework turned in. Wow, you turned in all of your homework? There's been so many other days that it's been really hard for you to do that. I wonder, how did you do that, right? What was different this time? So again, that's that seeking exceptions, that helping them bring attention to those behavioral changes that resulted in the positive outcomes that they've been looking for. So really like wows and hows. I use wows and hows a lot, both intentionally and unintentionally with my 5-year-old at home, right? But in those moments that I do, it's such a different reaction from her about explaining her behavioral choices, right? And being really excited about the things that took place that day, the things that she's sharing, and helping her identify her own abilities. So really like wows and hows. Reinforcement, and I guess going back to wows and hows too, I don't have slides here about sand tray or puppet work for scaling, but same thing, right? So sand tray can be used just like the artwork, right, to create an image of what a 6 is, right? What does a 6 look like? What does an 8 look like? What does a 2 look like? And start to give them a space to create that. And puppets are great ways for acting out wows and hows too, right? Some of the older kids I work with might think that I'm a little bit, I mean, they think I'm pretty crazy anyway, right? But some of those really big reactions have a tendency with some of my clients to get lost. Like, come on, Colleen, really? Like, come on. But if my puppet does it, right? If my puppet is really excited for another puppet, they give me a little more leeway. So wows and hows I really like doing with puppets, but all of that can be adapted as well. So reinforcement is another key concept that we want to integrate from solution focused into play therapy techniques. So with solution focused therapy, those direct and indirect compliments are essential. Right? And so they're based on observations of what the client has done and said, and they help us validate for the client that this process is difficult, right? And that we're listening and that we recognize how well the client is doing with it. And so with children, right, these compliments, this validation, this reinforcement might help them identify, okay, how do I move up that scale? And it also allows us to give what they call solution messages at the end of each session to help them continue growing, right? And continue that interpersonal search for growth. So just some reminders, right, of some attributes for growth. These are things that we really can seek for in our work with kiddos and complement them on, right? So, again, kind of wows at how it's like, wow, I noticed today you were really working hard, right, on your artwork, and you were so patient with me when I had to leave the room to find those markers that were missing, right? So I'm reflecting that I was paying attention today, right? And then I noticed, you patiently sat there and waited for me, even though you said that you really didn't want to wait and it was really hard to sit still. You were very respectful of our space, and you did that. And being able to just compliment those character traits and those observations that you're making of your clients. The client is competent and in charge. This is a quote from De Jong and Berg, the founders of solution-focused brief therapy. And I chose to highlight this here because when I think about play therapy, right, and working with children from a strictly play therapy perspective as well, we function under the same basic tenet, right? As play therapists, we trust that our child clients can make the decisions that they need to, right? We trust in that play process. And so to see that echoed so beautifully in the process of solution-focused therapy, right? That the client is competent and they are in charge, really for me just solidifies this blending of solution-focused and play therapy, when those core tenets are so enmeshed, right? I say, like, if we didn't give credit to De Jong and Berg here, this for me would be a really hard concept to properly maybe identify between solution focused and play therapy. And I love that. I love that there is so much overlap in this core principle, that it really makes sense to put together these interventions. What I've got for you as we start to wrap things up are just some additional resources, right? I mentioned Teachers Pay Teachers earlier. If you have not checked out that website, please do. It is such a great place. There are some really great free resources there. I don't have any affiliation with them. I don't have anything of my own creation there. It is strictly where I go to find all of the great work of others. And especially looking for like solution-focused play therapy specific resources. There is a wonderful shop. I don't know her. I wish that I did, but it's called Wholehearted School Counseling. So this is her banner here. It will link you directly to her site. She has so many materials. She's a school counselor. And so many materials specific to solution-focused play therapy. So all of those skills and resources that we talked about today, all of those interventions, she has this kit here on the left of the screen is a whole kit of resources for solution-focused play therapy interventions. And it is broken down into sections and tools and resources. I also love, she has this growth mindset fortune teller, right? So another great resource. And I think you can purchase things as a kit. You can buy them individually, but just a really great kind of place to start, right? Of like, oh, I have, I'm always one, I'm like, oh, I have all of these ideas. I want to make this, I want to make this, I want to do this, I want to like incorporate this. It's already done. And so with all that is going on right now, if I can access some materials that are already created and already showing their effectiveness and ready to rock and roll for my clients, I'm all for it. So you don't need to visit her, but she's got some really great stuff. Okay. So I also really just like switching things from a problem-focused mindset to a solution-focused mindset. This is also from Wholehearted School Counseling there. But when we go earlier, and we're thinking about compliments, right? And those character attributes that we really want to tease out of our clients. So many of our clients, especially kids, come to us and it's so problem-centered, right? Their parents are telling us that they're defiant, they're hyperactive, they're too talkative, right? At school, they're not focused, they just want attention, they're bossy, right? As a solution-focused play therapist, how can I start to edit those conversations a little bit, right? Oh, my kid is so impulsive. Well, maybe, right? But they're spontaneous and they're instinctive and they're really able to trust their gut, right? And yeah, we want to maybe reel that in a little bit with some of our goal setting, but they're not a bad impulsive kid, right? Oh, they're hyperactive. Yeah. They're super enthusiastic about things, right? They're energetic. They are a high energy kid, right? We're not minimizing the potential problems that can result from some of these, but we don't need to be focused on the problem language, right? Oh, they're so dramatic, right? Gross. That sounds gross, right? But they're expressive and they are passionate. And I will be the first to say I've got an expressive, passionate 5-year-old at home, right? But when I think about it that way, just shifting my own mindset, right? Okay, she's not being demanding, right? She knows what she wants. She's outspoken. How can I shift that, right, into a goal that helps her utilize that strength in an appropriate way, right? So I just like this. Again, it's not minimizing the behaviors, but it's giving us a new direction to look at them from. Thank you all so much for being a part of this presentation today, for joining me in this. I am so thankful that we were able to explore these topics today. And this training was a topic that was actually requested by a member in our community. And so I love being able to put these together when there's a need and something that we can address. So if any of you have training ideas or additional things you want added or things you want to share with me about what's working for you, success stories you've had from solution-focused play therapy, please feel free to share them with me. This will link you to our webpage, our Facebook page is there. Feel free to give us a call. My primary email is at the start of these slides, but if you have general questions for Heart and Solutions or us as an agency, please feel free to reach us at that email address as well. So thank you all so much for being a part of this today, and I look forward to many more trainings with all of you. So please feel free to reach out, and hopefully we will hear from you all soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining in on today's training. We look forward to having you join us again. Heart and Solutions is proud to provide CE eligible trainings for our counseling community. This training may be eligible for continuing education credit hours through either the National Board for Certified Counselors, provider number 7376, or the Association of Play Therapy, provider number 21-645. To obtain CE hours for today's training, be sure to follow the steps in the description below.